Super Mario Odyssey is one of those games that arrived and immediately made the world feel a little bit more generous than it did the day before. Released on the Nintendo Switch in October 2017, the game is often credited as one of the most inventive and joyfully original entries the 3D Mario series has ever produced, and the numbers bear that out because it became not only one of the best-selling games in the Switch's history, but the fastest-selling game in the Mario franchise at the time of its release. Between its boundless creativity and the sheer warmth of every environment it puts you in, it is a game that demands to be talked about every few years simply because it has earned it. The game is undeniably innovative in its execution, yet its roots are clearly visible through its mechanics and references, making it unmistakably a high-quality descendant of Mario 64. Few games have shaped the trajectory of an entire medium like that game did when it arrived on the Nintendo 64 in 1996. It was the moment Mario leapt into 3 dimensions, and the template it laid down, the open movement, the collectible stars in multi-layered sandbox stages, the freedom to simply explore, is one that the entire industry followed for years afterwards. Odyssey is frequently described as its spiritual successor, the game that most purely captures the freedom and inventiveness that made Mario 64 so revelatory, but on a scale that the humble Nintendo 64 hardware could never have dreamed of. And yet, when you hold both of these games in your mind at the same time, it raises an almost impossible question. What would it actually look like if you tried to bring one into the world of the other? As you can see from this footage, somebody has answered that question and made a version of the game to run on the Nintendo 64, so let's have a deeper discussion about it. I am Lady Arcade, and if you love nostalgia, hit that subscribe button, because today we are looking at Super Mario Odyssey 64, a full Nintendo 64 remake of Super Mario Odyssey crafted with extraordinary care by one of the most technically accomplished ROM hackers working in this space today. If you have spent any time around the Nintendo 64 modding community, Kaze Emanuar is a name you will have encountered repeatedly, and with good reason. He is one of the most prolific and technically proficient ROM hackers the scene has ever produced, with well over 100 Nintendo 64 hacks to his name across titles ranging from Super Mario 64 to The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. His projects span everything from playful novelty hacks like Chaos Edition, which generated random and often absurd cheat codes to disrupt the game in increasingly ridiculous ways and became a hit among YouTubers and streamers, to genuinely substantial standalone experiences like Super Mario 64 Last Impact, a full new game built inside the SM64 engine that the broader community widely considers one of the most complex and impressive ROM hacks ever made. If you watched my recent video on The Legend of Zelda: The Missing Link, then Kaze's name will already be familiar to you, because that was another one of his projects, and I did mention at the time that it would not be the last you heard of him on this channel. It is also worth re-acknowledging before we go any further that the world Kaze operates in is not without its complications. He has spoken openly about the uncertainty that comes with creating content based on Nintendo's intellectual property, and it adds a layer of significance to the fact that projects like Odyssey 64 exist at all. These are works made purely out of love for the source material, without profit, and against the very real possibility that they could disappear at any moment. So with that context in place, let us actually look at what Super Mario Odyssey 64 does and how well it does it.
Here we go!
After passing the title screen, the game opens with Mario standing aboard a familiar-looking floating airship, drawing an immediate and deliberate parallel with the Odyssey itself. A bob-omb informs Mario that Bowser has kidnapped Princess Peach with plans to marry her, and that to give chase, the ship needs power moons to get moving. This mirrors the central premise of the Switch game with a neatness that sets the tone immediately. A second bob-omb confirms that 3 moons are needed to just get the airship under underway at all, and so this opening area functions as a tutorial of sorts, allowing players to get familiar with the controls before the game properly begins. Captain Toad is here too, tucked away around the ship's deck and down a drain pipe leading to a small secret area, offering a gentle and charming nod to his recurring role in the mainline series. And perched on Mario's head right from the very first moment is Cappy. The moment Mario steps into the first proper kingdom, though, is the moment the game reveals what it is truly capable of: the Cap Kingdom. Built around the iconic Top Hat Tower from the real Mario Odyssey, is an astoundingly faithful recreation of that stage, rendered in Nintendo 64 polygons with a level of accuracy that genuinely takes a moment to process. The geometry, the silhouette of the tower rising above the stage, and the environment design all evoke the source material in ways that feel almost paradoxical given the hardware they are running on. Even the music is here, with a version of the Top Hat Tower theme accompanying the stage and making the whole thing feel even more authentic to where it comes from. But what is most impressive is not just the visual recreation, it is the fact that Odyssey's possession mechanic has been faithfully brought across as well. Throw Cappy at a frog and Mario can possess it, using the frog's body to launch himself to extraordinary heights. Cappy can also be thrown and then jumped off of or hurled at a Paragoomba so that Mario can take control of it and use its wings to soar above the stage. For a fan project running on 1996 hardware, this is simply remarkable. From there, the game moves into what is arguably one of the most memorable stages in the whole of Super Mario Odyssey, the Cascade Kingdom, a loving recreation of Fossil Falls, complete with a remix of that kingdom's iconic theme. The Cascade Kingdom represents another moment where the game asks you to set aside your expectations and just appreciate what is in front of you. The stage design here should not exist on the Nintendo 64, and yet it does. And it does so with enough fidelity to the source material that it takes on that quality the original had of feeling ancient and windswept and very, very large. The big addition here is the Chain Chomp, which players can possess and use to go hunting for moons, slamming and charging across the landscape in the same way the Switch game allowed. It is a brilliant use of the possession mechanic in a new context. The Sand Kingdom arrives next, and it is another stage that demonstrates how thoroughly Kaze and his collaborators understood what made the original work. In Super Mario Odyssey, the Sand Kingdom is set in the sun-bleached ruins of Tostarena, a sprawling desert environment with ancient stone architecture and a melancholy grandeur to it that made it one of the game's most distinctive settings. The D-Make captures that quality well, drawing on the Switch game's stage design to deliver a platforming environment that feels genuinely familiar despite its reduced polygon count. The electrical creatures known as spark pylons return here, allowing Mario to possess them and travel through the power lines at speed. And so do the bullet bills, which can be taken over to send Mario hurtling through destructible objects and out of reach moon locations. In the original Switch game, the Sand Kingdom's boss is Knucklotech, the giant stone fist creature that guards the binding band, and the D-Make brings a boss encounter of its own to close out the kingdom, keeping expectations intact. The Wooded Kingdom follows, and it is another piece of evidence for the defense of fan-made games. In the Switch game, it is a dense, industrial, organic environment full of enormous mechanical flowers and strange plant-based enemies, and the D-Make captures the feel of it well within the Nintendo 64's technical constraints. The plant possession from the original returns it, allowing Mario to inhabit those tall, vine-like creatures and stretch upwards to reach hidden areas and collectibles. And if you want something with a little more firepower, the tank transformation is also available, letting players turn Mario into a military vehicle and conduct the kind of small-scale mechanized warfare against the Mushroom Kingdom's enemies that very few Nintendo 64 games gave you the opportunity to consider. From there, it is Bowser's Kingdom, and with it, the game's final push. Bowser's Kingdom, in the original, is a Japan-inspired fortress full of ninja enemies, enormous towers, and a visual style that feels genuinely distinctive compared to everywhere else in the game. The remake brings the familiar transformations back alongside it, including the bird-like creatures whose long beaks allow players to traverse along walls, and the music once again accompanies the kingdom faithfully. Progressing through this stage ultimately leads to the game's final confrontation, a rematch with Bowser himself, now sporting a top hat in keeping with the wedding theme of the source material, who can be defeated by possessing one of the thwomps in the arena and using its enormous stone body to crush him. It is a satisfying and appropriately theatrical conclusion to the main run of Kingdoms. After the final boss, the game opens up considerably. Mario arrives in a wedding hall that draws visual inspiration from the Temple of Time aesthetic familiar to fans of Ocarina of Time, and here players can speak to NPC characters who function as credits, shouting out the team members who made the game possible. Bioback, the project's 3D modeler, is amongst those acknowledged, as is Limbo, who was responsible for the majority of the game's MIDI compositions. Speaking of the soundtrack, even this post-game wedding hall section delivers something special, offering a Nintendo 64 rendition of Jump Up Superstar, the iconic vocal theme that helped define the emotional tone of the original Mario Odyssey, and which remains one of the most fondly remembered pieces of music in modern Mario history. And completing the main story is only the beginning, because the game does not end at Bowser's defeat. What Super Mario Odyssey 64 actually delivers is 5 main kingdoms, each of which also has a corresponding dark variant, creating 10 fully realised stages in total, alongside the hub airship and its secret areas. This structure, with darker and more demanding versions of each kingdom waiting for players who have finished the main run, gives the game a depth and longevity that goes well beyond what you might expect from a passion project built on hardware from 1996. Each of these dark variants asks more of the player mechanically, leaning into the possession mechanics and stage design in ways that reward familiarity with both the original Odyssey and the remake's own rule set. This is not a proof of concept or a technical demonstration, it is a complete game made for free by people who cared enough about it to build it twice. Reflecting on everything that Super Mario Odyssey 64 achieves, it is difficult to find the right words that do not immediately slide into superlatives. This is a project that takes 2 of Nintendo's most beloved eras and folds them into each other with a level of craft and attention to detail that feels frankly disrespectful to how difficult that actually is. The stage design alone, the fact that environments which were built for a powerful home console in 2017 have been faithfully reconstructed for hardware that launched in 1996 is something that should not be possible, and yet is undeniably there on the screen in front of you. The possession mechanics from Odyssey are working on a Nintendo 64 ROM. The music, the bosses, the dark stage variants, all of it functioning as a coherent and genuinely enjoyable game without a penny charged for it and without any official support from Nintendo. This is what happens when genuine love for a medium and extraordinary technical skill meet in the same place at the same time. Kaze Emanuar and the team who worked on this project have created something that every fan of 3D Mario games owes it to themselves to experience, and Super Mario Odyssey 64 stands, in my view, as the finest Nintendo Switch remake that the ROM hacking community has ever produced. If this is your first time on the channel, please consider subscribing, because there is plenty more where this came from, and you might want to click on my video on the missing link here. I'll see you all again soon.